So we will chant again this. It says, Janma-karma-cha-me divyam,
Janma-karma-cha-me divyam,
evam yo veti tattvataha,
evam yo veti tattvataha,
tyaktva deham punarjanma,
tyaktva deham punarjanma,
naiti mameti sorjuna.
neti mameti sorjuna.
So here he says that the one who knows my real birth and karma, okay, then that person, right, is after giving up this body, he does not come back. Okay? So what is the reality about Krishna? What is the reality about?
He's neither born nor dies.
Exactly. Neither he is born nor he is died. Because if Krishna is presented as avatara, what is an avatara? All knowledge, which has taken a form not because of karma and not due to the veil, but what? To accomplish a specific job, right? So now if any person knows what exactly is this all knowledge, which is what? Nothing but awareness, okay, the consciousness. And what is one's own nature? Also the same awareness, okay? One awareness on one hand, what? Appears like what? An individual, and on the other hand, the total. Like one water on one hand appears as wave and on the other hand as ocean, but it is free from being both. Okay? So if the wave understands that the truth of I, the wave, is water, and the truth of ocean is equally water, and the water has no distinction, it is free from being both and it pervades both. Okay? If any person, tattvataha, recognizes this reality, then there is only one awareness. Okay? On one hand, what? It manifests as all knowledge and all power. And within that all knowledge and all power, there is my little knowledge and my little power. In form of my physical body, my subtle body. Following certain laws which are the causes. Okay? If the person understands that, then the person is what? Knows the reality totally. Okay? So that means when there is an equation, tat tvam asi. What is tat? It is Ishvara. What is tvam? It is you. And what is, there is an equation. Is it you are that. Okay? So that means when you think you, what do you think?
Small.
The small I, right? Now what does Upanishad make you see? That this small I is mithya. What is your real nature? It is awareness, right? Now tat, all knowledge, all power. Okay? But that all knowledge and all power which manifests as the entire physical world, the entire subtle world, which governs the entire causal, itself is what? Mithya. It again is a dependent reality. It depends upon what? Awareness. So that means if from the standpoint of awareness there is a total equation, right? So that means when I say 3 plus 2 is equal to 6 minus 1, it's an equation. Two sides look very different. 3 looks different from 6, plus looks different from minus, 2 looks very different from 1. So two sides obviously look, at the first sight, they look very different. Okay? But when you add 3 plus 2, it comes to what? 5. And when you do 6 minus 1, what does it come to? 5. So therefore, there is an equation. Obviously looking very different, but upon inquiry, they resolve into 1. The equation is at what? 5. Discovery of 5. On both sides. Okay? So, on both sides, when I look at myself and at Ishvara, I come to only one reality in which both resolve, and that is what? Consciousness or awareness, if I know that, then what has happened for me? The veil, which is ignorance, is what? Totally lifted. That means I know the reality exactly as it is meant to be known. Okay? If I know reality as it is meant to be known, where will I put my eye? Will I put it in my physical body? Will I put it in my subtle body? Will I put it in my causal body? No. I will put it in the awareness, which is there any action done by awareness? No. Does it have any attributes? No. It is completely free. While sustaining everything, while giving rise to everything, it is totally free. So what happens to this person who has totally removed the veil and known that I am none of the three, neither the physical, nor the subtle, nor the causal? Okay? What happens to this person? Lord Krishna says, Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sojana. After having given up this birth, the person does not come back, right, to experience life as what? One given individual. Okay? What has happened? The veil has been lifted. So what happens? The entire individuality, which I thought was the reality, is totally negated as not I. Okay? So in the mind, I have actually solved the puzzle completely. Okay? So that means initially then what will happen? Now I know I am not the doer. I am not the doer. Because I am awareness which never does anything. Where is action taking place? At subtle and physical level, which is mithya. In awareness, there is no action taking place, right? So now, if I understand that I am never a doer, okay, then where is the question of my experiencing result of my actions? So what happens? This whole karma, which is what? In my account, all unseen results which are yet to fructify, the whole thing disappears all at once. Because for karma to be experienced, I should think that I am a doer and an enjoyer. But this doer and enjoyer entity itself is negated by what? Lifting the veil of ignorance and knowing the reality about the nature of I. Okay? The minute I know the reality of nature of I as non-doer, everything that is accrued to the doer, which is the unseen result of one's action, it all disappears. The game is over for that person. This is what we call moksha. Okay? Because otherwise the person is endlessly what? The causal always remains. The causal will keep on giving rise to different forms, different physical and subtle body, and there is no end.
But to reach that point, one has to go through...
Understand the reality totally. That means the veil is totally lifted. You know exactly what is what. The nature of Atma is not the doer, but it is a non-awareness, does not perform any action.
Then who is performing that action of being, I don't know, I think I'm getting a little muddled.
Okay.
So, okay, the awareness does not perform any action or anything. But if I do something wrong,
Okay. So this is where I said, in order to get the knowledge, right, you have to be a highly dharmic person. You see, otherwise knowledge will not take place. This is why that step is very important. From adharma, you have to become a dharmic person. From a subjective, you have to become an objective person. Otherwise, there is no way the knowledge takes place. Ishvara will not reveal its true nature to you. So that means there is no question of being adharmic after that. You understand that? It's not like because I am now not subject to karma, I will now be irresponsible. No. Right? It is not that. Because you've already dealt. Because that is a foundation. You see? otherwise, exactly. The minute I say that I am not subject, I can say, okay, now I can kill. Exactly, I can do. But this is why that precondition we keep on emphasizing. That unless that growth process is over, Ishvara will not reveal its true nature. Because it can be so badly unused, misused, right? Okay. So therefore, this person, the entire causal, what? At one go is disintegrated. So that means, what is the causal? We call Sanchita Karma. Right? All the karmas which are in your account, they all immediately go away. What happened to your glasses?
I just woke up and I ran. But it's okay.
It's okay? Yeah. So cute. What happened to your father?
Yeah, he came, but he came just for half an hour, 40 minutes, and then he went back. He came around 2:30 something. Then I slept, and I won't usually sleep in the afternoon, so I didn't put an alarm.
We thought you were with your father.
Yeah, we thought you were with you.
Looking super hassle. You look like probably you just brushed.
Actually, I have a question which we can take in satsang also, but before I forget, I just want
Yeah,
to
you
ask.
tell me, so that I will then come.
See, we all have our own Sanchita karma.
Yes,
Okay?
yes.
Now, if I am a part of a family, it is at times it is said that something good or bad your forefathers have done, even you are affected.
See, it is affected through maybe the laws of genetics. It is affected. You are affected also through laws of your psychology. You see, because the confusion is carried on, no? So let's say your grandfather was, let's say, a very angry person, right? So then your father probably felt very scared, right? So that all that frustration then comes out on you. So it is carried on. It is carried on through laws. Laws of biology, laws of psychology, laws of what we call samskara, anything that you have done, right, which is good. So that means it will give you birth in a family which is a highly cultured family. Because in order to go through experiences of your good actions, you will have what? A conducive environment right from the childhood. So it is passed on through many different laws, not just one law. Yes? So now the entire Sanchita karma is gone for this person. Okay? What about Agami karma? Agami karma is, what did we say? That Agami karma is what, while I am going through life, I am constantly making choices. Please understand that. Okay? You are using your free will. Please don't overemphasize this destiny part. Because this is a very common problem if people in Hinduism, that people think that it's all predetermined, it's all and you just have to kind of go along. That's not what it says at all. You can move mountains through your free will. From a limited being, you can gain limitlessness by using your free will. That is the highest possibility. So please don't underestimate the power of this free will. Right? So in fact we have a prayer. It's a beautiful prayer. Okay? The prayer is Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amrutam Gamaya. Let me go from where? Asato. That which is Asat, which is false, okay, to Sat. The Mithya world seems like what? Reality to me. The reality is what? Totally missed out by me. Now, what do I want? How do I use my free will to go from what? Taking Mithya to be real to what?
What is real?
Exactly. Understand what is real and understand what is not so real as not so real, in between reality. Asato ma sadgamaya. Let me make that effort and help me to go from asat to sat. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. How will I go from asat to sat? The asat is what? It's a cause of what? Veil. Tamas. From that tamas of ignorance, darkness, you take me to the light of knowledge. Jyotirgamaya. Light of knowledge which makes me see mithya as mithya and what? Understand the satyam which was not there in my life before. So that means Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. From the darkness, take me to the light. The darkness of ignorance, take me to the light of knowledge. Okay? And if I get the knowledge, what happens? Mrityorma Amrutam Kamaya. Okay? If I get the knowledge, I cross what? The mrityu after mrityu means birth after birth after birth after birth. And what? Amrutam Kamaya. I recognize the fact that what? I am awareness which never is born and is never dead. I cross what? The cycle of birth and death. I pray for it. That means I'm using my free will to make an effort for this and I'm asking for help, both. This is the power of free will. Please don't think that you're just kind of floating along. No, you're not. The highest possibility for a human being to achieve is this, and you're asking for it through your prayer. You're making an effort and you're asking for help, both. Okay? This is something which is very, very important. So, this free will is used, right? You have to use your free will to what? Help yourself to what? Cross from what? Asatoma Satgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, and Mrityurma Amrutamgamaya. You have to make an effort and you have to ask for help because there are so many unknown variables in this pursuit. So that means you want those unknown variables to be in your favor.
Can you give the prayer to us? I don't know how, email it or something.
It's there. It's in the prayer, it's there.
It's there in our prayers.
It's there in your prayer list.
Backside.
It's the last.
The prayers last.
Okay. So therefore, this person has already solved the puzzle. Okay. So therefore, Agami, what happens to the actions that person does after the knowledge has taken place? There is no doer in the first place. It will not stick anywhere. The causal, the subtle and physical are negated as mithya. Not you. You are the awareness. Nothing sticks to that awareness. It's free from all characteristics. It's free from all attributes. It never has performed any action. So that means you have removed the veil because of which your association was with what? Physical, subtle and causal. Now that is the job of what? The job of that mistake is what solved. Okay. So therefore, there is no doer to which what? The result of action can stick. So therefore, Agami karma is also totally gone for that person. Sanchita karma, the account is closed. Okay? And then there is no future karma for what? One's action. Anything that one has performed in this life, right? All that is also closed. What happens to prarabdha karma? The prarabdha karma is the only one which remains. Why? Because it is prakarshena arabdha. It has already begun. It has already begun to fructify itself through what? This physical body, through this mind and through this lifespan. So that means this lifespan will go on till what? The prarabdha karma is over. Okay. Now, why sanchita goes away, agami goes away, but prarabdha doesn't go away? For several reasons. Okay. One is, imagine, for example, prarabdha is something which has already begun. Okay. You are a person and you have what? Released an arrow. Okay. Now the arrow is already released and you die in between. Will the arrow stop? The arrow will not stop because it has already been released. It will follow which laws?
Physics.
Laws of physics to end only when what? The
speed ends.
Exactly, when the speed ends.
It will
go till that point. Prarabdha karma is like that. Already released. Means it has to what? Finish, and after that it is over. Okay? Now, that is what we say, logically it makes sense that the prarabdha karma remains. Okay? Now, functionally speaking, it's very important that the prarabdha karma remains for two reasons. One is, imagine a scenario that the minute you come to know the reality, you are going to physically die. You are going to drop off. Because the physical body which is born of prarabdha karma is gone, and you will therefore what? Give up the body and mind immediately. Would anybody be interested in the knowledge where you will just totally drop dead? Everybody will stay away from it. Right? So therefore, it is in your interest to what? Continue with this body. Okay? Now, all your lifetimes you have spent thinking that you are this little tiny individual in this vast universe. Now you are given a few years to live life with a totally different vision, which is lovely. Right? You are given the lifetime where you can see, my God, all that is here is me, the awareness, and all the names and forms are what?
Awareness.
Exactly, manifestation of that awareness. So you can live your rest of your life with a totally different perspective. Okay? And you can really enjoy life. Because you don't live out of this smallness, lack, inadequacy. You live out of what? Freedom. That is your bonus. Reward. Okay? Plus, there is another important thing is, if imagine the wise person immediately dies, then who will teach? Right? Even functionally, you need wise people around who will what? Before they leave, what? They will pass on this knowledge. So that the parampara continues. It is through them that the parampara continues. Ishvara uses the wise person to what? Convey what it has to say to different people. So that means when a wise person is talking, it is Ishvara talking through that person and showing the other person the true nature of that person and of Ishvara. So that means a wise person becomes the instrument through which what? This knowledge is passed on by all knowledge. Ishvara. So it's a very important function. And the prarabdha karma continues. Okay? But once the prarabdha karma is what? Over, then our Swamiji used to say, it is like a seed which is roasted. A roasted seed, will it again sprout? No. So that means you don't come back again, right, to experience the world as what? One little individual. Because that one little individual you come back because of what? Your veil is intact. And because of that veil, what? Your individuality is I, is something, is what you understand. once that error is undone, there is no need, the puzzle is solved. As Preeti was saying, the life mission is to remove that veil. When the veil is removed, there is no need for coming back as an individual. Because in a given body, I have discovered I am what? Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. I am not this little jiva who is struggling with my punya and papa and different bodies, and through these different bodies, different situations and different limitations in form of my subtle body, different limitations in form of my physical body, constantly struggling to manipulate situations. I get nowhere, I get frustrated, I have anger. Even though I help myself, right, to be a mature person, I'm still what? I still have to go through death. Not only my death, but what? Death of many others that I love. I still have to go through what? Physical body means there are ailments. Nobody can avoid diseases. Right? So that means that cycle of Janma, which is birth, Mrityu, Jara, old age. Old age means what? Starting from your hair becoming white and your eyes having glasses, what? It continues to deteriorate more and more and more and more, right? So that Vyadhi, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, then in between the birth and the old age, there is what? Time and again, my body is afflicted with what? Diseases. Both physical and sometimes mental afflictions. Okay? So that whole thing of coming as an individual and going through life, which means all this is what? Is over now. Does it mean that I become extinct? No. Why? Exactly. Wonderful.
What?
Excellent. Right? I am the awareness which is the truth of everything, which makes everything what it is, right? And itself is what? Unchanging. While I manifest, I make it possible to manifest the whole thing. Okay? So I remain as an awareness, which is the truth of the entire creation, which includes what? The causal, subtle and physical of what? Both what? Different entities and vegetables. Right? But I am not connected to any one vyashti. Because if I am connected to one vyashti, I have to go through what? The pain. Exactly. Right? So this is what we call moksha. And this is what Lord Krishna says, the one who knows my nature, tattvataha, in reality, it also knows his or her own nature in reality, because there is an identity. And for that person, the game is over. The person does not come back as one little individual, okay, experiencing what? Different results of one's action, because now one discovers that I am that awareness which has never performed any function, which is attributeless, which is the truth of everything, without which nothing can exist, but pervading everything, what? It actually does not do anything, because my I is now placed in its right place. Okay? So this is what Lord Krishna is saying. Now, the next verse, we have to proceed. So now, the verse 10, it says, Vitaraga bhaya krodhaha manmaya mamupashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhava magataha. Here he says, now you have to repeat after me. Vitaraga bhaya krodhaha manmaya mamupashritaha bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhava magataha. So this is where, in fact, Rashna was asking that imagine that while I'm living, I know that nothing sticks to me. So that means no karma phala is remaining for me. So now, what if this wise person starts shooting everyone because the person is not subject to, right? Not subject to karma phala. The person understands I'm awareness, okay, and I never perform any action. So now, let me just go and what? Kill, cheat, lie, do everything because I am not subject to what? Any karma phala. Is that a possibility?
No.
No. Why?
Because he has gained that wisdom. Why will he do that?
Exactly. Right? So this is what he says, that in order, who will get this knowledge? Lord Krishna says, I will, because the laws of Ishvara are such that the person who gets the knowledge, right, will have to deserve the knowledge. And who's the person who deserves the knowledge? He explains here, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. The person from whom the Krodha, the anger, okay, the Bhaya, the fear, and Raga has gone away. So that means unless you take care of your anger and your fear and your so-called binding desires, you will, so now you have to, now in order to actually get this vision, the person should have worked on one's fears, one's anger, okay, and one's what we call binding desires. Because binding desires, so I will talk about each three of them, but these three stand for many other things. Sadness, anxiety, you can add one whole list, right? They are just lakshana to show that this knowledge just doesn't come like that. Okay? So therefore, each one we will see now.
He should be Sthita Prajna.
So that's the Prajna we haven't seen. So let's not add terms. Let's see what Lord Krishna is saying. Okay? So because otherwise we'll create ideas. So let's see what Lord Krishna is saying. He's saying Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. So what does it mean? Generally, it is translated very simplistically. So people who have not studied the intricacies of Gita will say the person will have zero fear. Okay? Or the person will have zero irritation. No matter what happens, the person will be totally composed at all times forever. Okay? And then they will say the person would be what? Have zero desires. Raga is desires. Totally devoid of desires. Okay? And this is something Rashna is very rightly saying no.
Not possible for him.
Not possible. And it's not possible for anyone. Exactly. In a human form, it's not possible. Right? So if you create an ideal which does not exist, right? You're chasing a mirage. Right? So now what does Lord Krishna mean? So this is where I said binding desires. There is a very, very common, this gurus come and they start saying, oh, desire is your enemy, eliminate your desires, right? And you say, oh my God, I still have so many desires. I'm not a spiritually evolved person, I'm a material person because I have so many desires, right? Immediately you start naming yourself. You again start what? Depreciating yourself as what? Material person. Not at all. Okay? What Lord Krishna is talking about is desire according to the Vedic and Gita way of looking at things is not something that you need to keep away from. Okay? There are three Shaktis that are given to you as a human being. Okay? One is Ichha Shakti. Ichha Shakti means capacity to desire. It's your privilege. The other one is Kriya Shakti, the capacity to act. And the third is Jnana Shakti, the capacity to know. These are the three privileges that you enjoy. Capacity to desire, capacity to act, and capacity to
No.
know. Okay? So therefore, you don't need to give up desires. That's a good news. Right? In fact, the person who comes to this knowledge, the name in Sanskrit is Mumukshu. Mumukshu is Moktum Ichuhu. He has a desire for freedom. So we are not asking to eliminate desire here, because unless you had desire to learn, you would not be here. You would not make so much effort to come from Germany, come from the US, leave your job in Bombay, from Portugal, if you had no desire to learn. Desire is the force which drives you. It takes you to places and what makes you discover things.
And actually, even the desire to have no desire is a desire.
Exactly.
So you're never free of
Absolutely,
desire.
you're never free of desire. Absolutely. Right? So desire is your asset. Don't make it into a liability. Okay? But what happens? Why is desire, we are so afraid of desires? Okay? The problem is, I can have many desires, okay, but not all of them get fulfilled. Right? And when it doesn't get fulfilled, what happens to you?
Anger.
Yes, exactly. So that means what? There is anger, there is frustration, there is sense of failure, there are all kinds of problems that happen. Okay? So what is the solution? Is it to give up desire?
It's to find equanimity.
Exactly. The solution is not to eliminate desire, what? To learn how to deal with results more appropriately. So these reactions that I have, I don't have. That's all. That's all is required. If you can learn to manage your desires, okay, you are free to have millions of desires. It is not a problem anymore. The desires only become a problem because I don't know how to manage my desires. Okay? So what Lord Krishna is saying is, if you can convert a binding, the desire that totally binds you and creates a dependence in you, and its non-fulfillment creates a huge havoc with reference to your mental equilibrium, then you need to pay attention to that desire. Okay? And you need to make it what? Something which is non-binding to you.
Like slave, should be slave to.
You don't become slave to it. So how do you do that? Okay. So how does one do that? One of the things that really helps, because let's say I have a desire for promotion, and why not? If you're working hard, everybody has desire for promotion. It's not like, oh yeah, I should not have desire. Everybody wants to be successful, everybody wants to advance in life. So if you're working, there is nothing wrong to have desire for promotion. But let's say I don't get the promotion that I so much wanted. Then what happens?
Dissatisfaction.
There is a lot of dissatisfaction which actually can what? Make me very unproductive. So I do less work and I'm more dissatisfied. And then I project on my boss, I project on my colleagues, and then what? I become a demanding person and I don't actually pay attention to my contribution. Okay? So there is a whole distorted series of things that start happening and I'm totally caught by that. Okay? So now, what is the way out? How can I get out of this tendency? Okay? Then people say, oh, you should be, this advice is given. You should be able to take everything that comes with certain equanimity. But how? Everybody wants to take things with equanimity, but how does one do it? Okay? So that means, please understand it is not an advice which is given by Lord Krishna saying that, hey, you should have more equilibrium. Lord Krishna shows you certain realities, knowing which that equilibrium will naturally come. Okay. What is that knowledge? Knowing which the equilibrium will naturally come.
The right sense of I.
First, is it the right sense of I? Of course, because in that case, what Rashna is saying is right. Okay? Generally, the desires are very important to me because I am dependent upon desire, right, to fulfill my lack. Once I recognize that no object of desire can actually fulfill my lack, the solution lies in knowing my true nature, then what? My dependency on that given object to fill the lack will naturally go away, because I will understand that this is not the solution. This is not where the solution lies.
Is it the understanding of impermanence?
Exactly. The second thing is the understanding of the impermanence, right? You can say that this object which I think is so much needed by me, what? Itself is changing all the time. Me and my preferences are changing all the time. So even if I get it, for how long will I be satisfied? Right now it seems like, a life and death kind of a thing. But many times we see in life, right, something I really wanted and I got it. And then that is forgotten. That is lost its value. Now I really want something else. How much time do I actually enjoy what I really strive for to get? Right? And then really enjoy it. Very little. Because by the time that is done, the next one emerges. And I'm madly running, equally dissatisfied to fulfill that. Okay, so it's an endless chase for something which I can't get through that. Once I understand that, then what will I do? I will understand that, hey, this promotion will give me this much. What will it give me? Some more power maybe, some more money maybe. Okay? But if I impute on that promotion what? My self-esteem, my nurturement, my fulfillment, my satisfaction, is it capable of giving me that? Maybe only temporarily, but not permanent. When I understand that no object can actually give me what I am really searching for, that mad obsession for that object naturally goes away. Because I see it for what it is. I don't blow up its value in my mind. The more I reduce my subjectivity, the less I project my own value onto it. Okay? And I see the object as it is, what it can do for me and what it cannot do for me. And most of the objects, as Preeti is saying, they are actually impermanent. Okay? And they can't do what you want them to do. But you can't then say they are useless either. Okay? They do have a value. While being impermanent, they do have a certain value. So you just see it as it is.
So you change your desire to a preference.
Exactly. Right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
If you don't, that's okay too.
That's okay too, because anyway it cannot give you what you are really looking for. So that means you convert your desire into preference. This is what we call, make it from binding to non-binding for you. You're free. Right? This is growth. You're free. That means you're using your free will to express your desires. You engage in the world according to your desires, but you are not totally caught by them.
Isn't it?
Now, go ahead.
Isn't the tool of Karma Yoga?
Yeah, this is a way through Karma Yoga. Absolutely. Right? Make your desires which are binding into a non-binding for you. Okay? Now the other thing which helps us to understand, have some equilibrium is this is the aspect of Karma Yoga that Carl is talking about. Okay? I have a desire and I engage in the world to fulfill that desire, but do I control the result? No. Okay? Like we saw, I think we saw here, right? That I have a free will. I can choose to lift this pen, I can choose to keep it here, or I can choose to give it to Monica. That choice I have. But having decided to drop it, do I have a choice as to where it goes? What takes over? The laws of gravity. Okay? So that means I can choose my actions, I can choose my desires, but I don't choose the results. But because I don't choose the results doesn't mean that they're all random. Okay? What takes care of the result? Ishvara. The Ishvara in form of laws. The laws of cause and effect, which operate from what? The knowledge which is so much vast compared to my little intelligence, which can see all the different cause and effects which go into giving me that result. Once I understand the laws of Ishvara are at work and they are never failing, what would be my attitude?
Taking the results is gratitude.
With a certain gratitude, with certain composure. Okay? It is not an advice. Please understand, we are not trying to, it is understanding some realities in light of which I naturally change. Please understand that. Okay? So this is how I gain mastery over all my desires. This is the work which is necessary for knowledge to take place.
Can you just repeat that again? I don't think I got it entirely. Sorry.
Okay, which part you did not get?
That how to, the basic thing of how to, be able to accept gracefully if something at this point when something doesn't happen. How to.
Okay. See, when things don't happen according to you, then because you first have to know that I don't control results.
That's.
Right? I don't control results, then who governs result? Then you have to ask a second question. Right? That is Ishvara. And Ishvara's laws, are they failing? No. Right? Because the wealth of knowledge and the width of knowledge within which they operate is infinite. Right? And my knowledge is how much? Very little. Okay? So that means it is coming from me. Now, another thing which is very, very important, because the things did not happen my way and the laws are at work, so you don't immediately give up. You don't say, now Ishvara has given me this result and therefore, but now I give up. No, you still can make an effort, right? Identify some variables that you can, right, add to get the result that you want. We are not saying you don't, right? But what happens is, if you don't accept Ishvara, what happens that when things don't happen your way, immediately you get into what? The blame mode. Blaming somebody or blaming yourself. And once you get into this blame mode, are you increasing the chances of your getting it? You are actually decreasing your chances of getting it, because you added further distortions. You are actually further away from the goal, right? Rather than what? Making the constructive effort to what? Get what you want. So we are not asking you to just give up because the first time you did not get what you want, because the laws are infallible. We are asking you to drop the burden. Okay? When things don't happen to you, automatically we accumulate the burden of failure, blame, disappointment, anxiety. But that can be given up by knowing that Ishvara's laws are at work. When Ishvara's laws are at work, I keep all these dysfunctional emotions under check and free my mind to what? Make some effort, some more effort. in a constructive way, which will take me closer to where I want to go.
Can I share a beautiful thought on this?
Yes, please.
The serenity prayer that says, God, grant me the serenity. Everybody knows it. Doesn't it fit perfectly?
Absolutely.
It's perfect.
Perfect. Perfect. We do, Surya does it in morning meditation. Very
Isn't
often.
that most,
That's the last time.
We do that serenity prayer, and Ananda has translated it in Hindi so that.
Does everybody know what she's talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that is a very important, right? That, do you know? Okay, so explain to her.
it says, God, grant me the serenity or the peace of mind to accept the things that I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can.
I know that.
And the wisdom to know the difference.
I also do that, man.
Excellent. This is a wonderful prayer. Because we spend so much time brooding over things that we cannot change. We make because our mind is so preoccupied with brooding and blaming and our sense of failure that we don't make enough effort to change what we can.
Which often is ourselves.
Exactly.
Or our attitude or our
Right.
accents.
Absolutely. Right? And we don't know the difference between what I can change and what I cannot change. I spend so much of my time and energy wanting to change things that I can't change. And not making adequate effort to change what I can. It's all confusion. That's why I need clarity. Gayatri. Give the clarity. Ask for it. Okay? So this is why the person, this is a foundation without which Lord Krishna is saying knowledge will not take place. You have to work at all these levels. Okay? Desires, every desire, what? You have to make it into non-binding desire for you so that you have freedom with reference to that desire. Fulfillment of desire, wonderful. If it is not, you still can make an effort, no problem. Right? Or you can choose to drop it. Both options are available to you. Okay? But all with what? A certain amount of equanimity and composure. In light of knowledge, Ishvara's laws are at work, which gives me the result of the action. It's one thing, and second thing is no object of desire can actually give me what I am looking for. It serves some function, but not totally. So therefore, the dependency that I have on fulfillment of the desire for my well-being, right, that goes away. Because your well-being is not so closely tied to what? Having or not having that object. Because that's a reality. Because once you get that object, immediately it loses its value to you. Because it cannot give you what you are looking for. So placing that object in its right place. Not that it is totally useless, nor that it is everything that I need for my fulfillment. It has this much and not more. That is right placement. That then you find yourself free with reference to desire. If you can find freedom with reference to one object of desire, you can then find yourself free with reference to any object of desire. Because all objects of desire are the same.
This wise person, he has gained it. He has attained wisdom and reached that point. But if he acts in an unwisely manner, will he again have to not down in the sense, go back and then work again on himself to?
Okay, that's a very nice question. So Savita's question, I will put it slightly differently. See, the first thing, as I told you, that in order to gain the knowledge, you should have first, it's like Ishvara will not reveal itself to you until you are ready for it. Right? So that means, as a very preparation, you should have taken care of all this. Okay? Now that means more or less you are a person who can manage desires. Okay? But it doesn't always mean, right, that you are always totally lucid. Okay? So that means our teacher was saying, right, that if you are subjective and if you recognize that you are subjective, you are objective. You see? Because you know what, most of the time we are subjective, but what happens? We don't even realize it. Our subjective opinions seems like reality to us. A wise person, even if that person goes on a subjective mode for a while, immediately the person will know, hey, I'm operating from a subjective mode, and what will happen? Immediately you switch back.
So you will say that a wise person has no more binding desires.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Is
No
this
more
absolutely necessary? Because when I think at some persons in this tradition, the first one who, as far as I know, you can speak about the name, Swami Sudananda.
Who?
Swami Sudananda. You know about him.
Yeah.
So he was, as a wise person, teaching for a long time, and then all these things were happening. And everyone was asking, how is possible?
So, I mean, first of all, I don't know him.
Yes,
And
of course.
secondly, I think anybody who is violating some basic dharma, I don't think that that person is a wise person. Right? I mean, if you're violating dharma left, right, and center, you're not a wise person. I mean, how does one know? Who gives him a title of a wise person? Right?
Yeah, okay. For me, it's more the question, you say it's not possible. Then
It's
it
not
cannot
possible.
be a wise
Then
person
cannot
before.
be the wise person.
Because these things were happening in all
these things,
traditions.
exactly.
That the wisdom or the knowledge was misused.
Exactly.
Yes, okay.
This is not possible. This is why, because all knowledge Ishvara will not lift the veil until you are ready for it. You can fool everyone, you can't fool Ishvara. Okay?
To
But
this point, and I'm not sure I know the specifics of what you're talking about, but a wise person, could they be fallible enough? They may have all the intellectual understanding, but could they be fallible as a human, the human form, to make errors of judgment because they may be tempted by human desires, needs.
Like Vishwamitra was tempted by Menaka.
Right? It doesn't take away their wisdom, it does take away the purity of their accomplishments or what have you, but are they not subject to human fallibility?
yes, maybe they are a subject, but it really depends upon the extent to which you are talking about, right? So this is what I am saying. In order to become a wise person, you cannot have a huge subjectivity and become wise person, because the laws of nature are such they will not bless you with knowledge. Okay, but then to think that the wise person at the level of mind is absolutely perfect is also not true, because what makes the wise person is the knowledge of the fact that awareness is never affected by whatever is the condition of mind. Okay? But in order to understand this accurately, you need a mature mind. So this is a trick. You see what I mean? So therefore, until you cannot be violating and abusing people, that is not possible. But you can have at times some judgment which could be a little erroneous. That is possible. Obviously it is possible. Because you, as a wise person, you still have a mind which is a limited mind. Right? So you can make some wrong judgment.
As a human body.
As a human body, right? When you can, the minute you recognize wise means when I'm going on a subjective mode, what happens? I recognize that I'm going on a subjective mode. Then what will I do? I'll use my free will to what? Come back on track. That is a wise person. Okay, I will not just let it all go and say, oh, now awareness. This is what I say, there's a huge danger. Oh, awareness is actionless, so I can do whatever. That is irresponsible living. That is all distorted mind. A distorted mind, it cannot handle, cannot capture realities. If I recognize my subjectivity as subjectivity, and if I shift back, that is even a psychologically a sane person, right? So you need to be a psychologically sane person in order to have the knowledge. That's just the very basic minimum requirement. Any person who is constantly abusing the free will and then says awareness is not subject to action is a hypocrite. So this is where one has to be, this is why Vedanta is not, it's not ordinary, right? So that's why it's very easy to say Atma is free, it's awareness, it's awareness. It's like a parrot, anybody can repeat it. But to really understand all its intricacies, to live that vision, that requires really grace of Ishvara and your own effort. Otherwise, it will not bless, it cannot bless you. Because Ishvara is not some entity out there who is judging you and something will be missed out. Ishvara is in your buddhi, right? And you can't hide anything from Ishvara. If it was an external entity, you can somehow fool him one way or the other. But if it is in your buddhi, in and through your buddhi, that all knowledge, how will you fool that all knowledge? It's impossible. Okay, so now bhaya. What is bhaya? Fear. Okay. Now fear is something, again, one has to recognize that I don't only fear. Is it okay?
Yes.
What are
Yes. So Surya said the time is up. 1 hour is up.
You want to do the prayer now?
Yeah. So I will just talk about fear just a little bit, right? So fear is something, again, you must understand that the wise person, people will say that he is like completely what? Completely zero fear. Now completely zero fear is not possible, right? Because there is what we call the fear as an instinct is something which is very necessary for a human species to protect itself. Survival instinct, exactly. Right? So that means if you are walking in a forest, then today where we went, right, they said that at night there are cheetahs which come in this property. Right? So imagine you are nicely walking, okay, in this beautiful property, and there is a cheetah coming and said, oh, everything is one.
Then you will actually become one.
Exactly. And then you'll actually become one because you'll end at the start. Right? So that means you said, oh, now I have understood this Vedanta. It says that form, that physical form, and this physical form, they're all one. Right? So now I have no fear from this cheetah that I have seen. Then, as she says, you'll actually become one because you'll end up in the stomach of the cheetah, right? So we are not talking about zero fear and losing that discretion, which is very necessary for this human body to survive, right? We are not becoming some crazy robots or anything. Please understand, don't make wise person into some totally unrealistic, unemotional, insensitive human being, please. Okay? So that means certain fears are healthy and they are very important, right? You are walking in New York City at night, a very huge guy comes, right, and you are alone. You will take some precaution, and it's healthy to take some precaution. You may not label him as this and that, but you just make some practical thing to what? Make sure that you don't get bumped or whatever. That's healthy, that's normal, that's objective. You will have some fear and that's okay. Okay? Now that means total elimination of fear is not possible, but a lot of our fears have got nothing to do with instinctual fear, but what? A lot of psychological fears that we have. Huge. We build up huge amounts of fears. Not based on facts, but based on what? Our own imagination. Okay? So that means the fear that I'm suffering from is what? A lot of it is my own creation. Nothing to do with the world outside. Okay? So that fear you certainly have to deal with in order to understand Vedanta. Because that means a fear, a psychological fear means that there is high amount of subjectivity. Now, how does one take care of fear? Tell me. Because where does fear come from?
From not knowing.
Exactly. A lot of fear is of, as Carl says, is of unknown. Okay? Tomorrow, what is going to happen, nobody knows. What tomorrow will bring, nobody knows. Okay? So that means, if nobody knows, I still have fear, because if good things happen, there is no problem. But if things happen that I don't want, that's what creates fear, right? Because unknown is unknown. But in that unknown, what? There are many things which can manifest which I don't like at all. And I have fear of what? The tomorrow manifesting something which I don't like, or I don't appreciate, or I hate, or I whatever, right? I dislike, or whatever, or I dread. It all different degrees.
It's not based on reality.
It's not based on reality, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So you create a picture that this, one very good example is that somebody was telling us that, they went to a cocktail party, and in that party there were people who were extremely wealthy, very wealthy people who have a lot of wealth, okay? But a lot of them were talking about, some insecurity of whether they'll be able to keep that wealth or not. Okay? So that means they are right now having wealth. Okay? But they are still suffering so much for what? The possibility of losing it, which has not even occurred yet. So right now, their present is worried about a future which has not even manifested. Okay? So that means you and then if I don't have that, and then what will happen here, and then what will happen, and then what will happen, and you create one huge big picture, and you are so afraid for things which have not at all happened in the first place. Okay? So this tendency of mind to blow everything out of proportion, you can certainly check. So this is, how does one do it? Bring back to reality. Okay? Hey, has it yet happened? No. Why am I carrying it in my mind? There is a possibility for it to happen? Maybe. Then when I'm in my office, I take some actions, right? Some constructive actions to protect myself. Nobody is saying I should not. How does my worrying and building pictures of these horrible events, how is it going to help me to cope with that uncertainty better? Tell me. You're even only making it worse. So you're not taking any constructive actions, you are just getting caught in this framework which is not enabling you to make appropriate actions. A cocktail party is not the time that you carry those worries. When you're in your office, you take some measures, right? You see how the minds are just not in touch with what is at all. And it just keeps carrying hundreds of different worries because so many things I can't control and I don't know how they will manifest. But I just suffer of this possibility of it happening without it happening. There again, how can I check this? Again bring in Ishvara. Ishvara's laws are going to decide what will happen. And if you're afraid, ask for whose help? Ishvara's help. That is constructive way, right? Without denying those fears. Because human being is of course afraid of how future will unfold. So you don't deny those fears, but you help yourself through those fears by asking for help. Ask for help for what you want. Ask for help so that things don't happen that way, and if they do happen that way, give you the capacity to cope with it better. Both. This is how one has to work without denying one's fears, right? I should not be feared. I should not have fear. Because a person who has fear doesn't become wise. So now let's forget about my fear. That is worst. Very nice. That is worst.
I'm saying it was forced.
It is forced, and forced doesn't make any love.
It doesn't remain for
It
long.
doesn't, not at all. That means you are afraid of that fear. The fear is there without acknowledging and addressing it. What? You are afraid to even acknowledge your fear. So you create second fear of your fear. You multiply your confusion. Okay? Here you acknowledge it, ask for help. Ask for help. Okay? In both directions. So that you get what you want, and if you don't, you have better capability of managing it. That is your prayer. So you take care of fears, you look into the psyche which makes you make all these huge pictures out of what? No reality. Try to check this tendency to what? Build on assumptions after assumptions, out of and plus assumptions, some picture, and start believing in it. Break that tendency of the mind. Question yourself, why am I assuming that? Ask yourself this question. That has not even happened and I'm assuming something else now. Then something else. So I keep on building up story. This is Surya, when we do these interactive workshops where we have case studies and we have graphs and we have PowerPoint, where we actually show you the process through which the mind enters into a completely subjective mode. So many different steps are happening. Then you have to check cognitive. Yeah. So then you have to check this tendency at every level. You help yourself also, and you ask for help. This is how one handles one's fear. And until one has done that job, knowledge will not take place.
But knowledge can help to handle the fear.
Exactly. The knowledge will help to handle the fear because again, I understand that at the most, let's say I don't get it. Again comes back that I can be, nothing is critical for my well-being. That is the reality. I think that this is critical without which I cannot be well. What is the reality? I am the truth of the whole universe. Everything depends upon me. It does not even have a real existence. This is the truth. So once you begin to get this picture, then the object which occupied such a big place in your life will not, because now you understand the solution to your fulfillment does not lie in the other object. So even if it is not coming, then what? The fear, that great fear, oh, if it doesn't happen, what will I do? That fear will go. Right? So you're right, Carl, the knowledge does happen. And this is why both go together. Absolutely. Right? The more you listen to Vedanta and see the big picture, your capacity to what? Deal with all the day-to-day things. Because you put it in perspective, right? Becomes better. The more you deal with those things better, what? You gain a certain composure from which what? The vision can be better understood. So what? There is a virtuous cycle. One reinforces the other, right? And then ultimately there is clarity. So you are right. You constantly make effort in both directions. Knowledge and growth. And each reinforces the other.
And the biggest fear, I think, is this feeling that I'm limited and I will die.
Exactly. So even that is taken care of, right? The fear of death and mortality is a very big fear. That also is taken care of. It's a huge fear. Your own mortality and mortality of all your young loved ones, right? I remember when I was a very little child and I used to love my father. And I used to, please Ishvara, that don't, I love my father, don't ever take him, because that's how I have no idea what is his lifespan, right? But as a young child, I'm so, I'm afraid that as somebody that I love so much, what if that person goes away? Because that's always a possibility. You see what I mean? So as Carl is saying, that mortality gives a huge fear. One's own and one's loved ones. And that also is sought through this knowledge. Very fundamental fear it takes care of. Okay. Then, the next one we will see Krodha, anger. How does one have certain mastery over one's anger? That we will see.
And Rag you said is?
Raga is desire. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.